If World War III breaks out, where would you run? Where could you retire safely without waking up every day wondering if you're next? This isn't fear-mongering. It's future-proofing. Because let's face it, the world is teetering. Supply chains are brittle. Alliances are shifting. And entire regions could ignite from a single spark. And while politicians talk about de-escalation, regular people like you and me are left with one burning question. Where can I go where I won't have to look over my shoulder? Not just to survive, but to live. To retire. To rebuild a peaceful life when peace is no longer guaranteed. If that question has ever crossed your mind, you're not crazy. You're early. And this video is for you. So let's set some ground rules. We're not looking for bunkers or bug-out vans. We're talking about real countries. Stable, peaceful, independent. Nations that are unlikely to be targeted, have strong neutrality policies, and offer residency options even for expats on a modest retirement budget. We're looking for places that offer something precious: distance, discretion, diplomacy. Because when war breaks out, those who survive aren't the strongest, they're the smartest. And you're about to find out exactly where those smart retirees are already positioning themselves, quietly, strategically, and off the radar. Let's start with a myth. A lot of Americans think they'll just ride it out at home. Maybe in the Midwest, maybe in a cabin somewhere. But here's the reality. If a global war breaks out, there's no such thing as safe at home. The US will be involved, like it or not. Whether it's boots on the ground, cyber attacks, or global sanctions, the ripple effect will reach your retirement account, your healthcare, and your personal safety. The same is true for the UK, most of Europe, parts of Asia, and anywhere aligned with NATO. So where does that leave you? Here's the good news. There are countries that have made it their entire mission to stay neutral. Some even have long-standing legal frameworks that prevent them from joining wars. Others are tucked away, geographically isolated, politically disinterested, and economically self-reliant. And some are rising stars, quietly attracting expats looking for affordability, peace, and no strategic value to major powers. Let's dive into a few. But before we get to the list, ask yourself this. What would it cost you not to plan ahead? What would it feel like to wake up one morning and suddenly the world is on fire and you have nowhere to go? That's why we're doing this. Because if you wait until everyone else starts asking where's safe, it'll be too late. Prices will skyrocket. Visas will tighten. Borders will close. But if you prepare now, you can quietly, safely, and affordably relocate to a place where your life, your future, and your retirement are protected. So here's what we'll reveal in this video. The top 7 safest countries to retire if global conflict breaks out. Why neutrality is more than just politics, it's survival. How to legally retire abroad without needing millions. Which countries quietly became conflict-free zones while no one was watching. And the one country no one talks about because it's too safe, too cheap, and too far away to be noticed. Yet, let's open this loop wide. Because by the time we close it, you'll know exactly where to go, how to get there, and what to avoid. Still think this won't affect you? Just remember, the last 2 world wars didn't start with full-scale invasions. They started with whispers, moves on a chessboard, one country taking just one more piece. And the people who made it through? They had already moved their pieces long before the game began. Let's start with a country that's been preparing for this moment for over a century, Switzerland, the land of neutrality. The place where global elites stash their money. The country that refused to take sides in both world wars and still came out thriving. So why is Switzerland still considered one of the safest havens on Earth? Because while other nations flex muscle, Switzerland builds fortresses, literally. They've got underground bunkers for nearly every citizen, a population trained in civil defense, and a government that moves like chess masters, not cowboys. But here's the catch. Switzerland isn't cheap. And it isn't easy to retire there unless you're already wealthy. So while it deserves mention, it's more of a blueprint than a plan for most people. Let's zoom out. Where else offers Swiss-style safety without the millionaire price tag? That's where Costa Rica comes in. This tiny Central American gem abolished its military in 1949. Yes, abolished it. Instead, they focused on healthcare, education, and diplomacy. And it paid off. Costa Rica remains one of the most politically stable, environmentally rich, and retiree-friendly nations in the Western Hemisphere. They offer a specific retirement visa, the pensionado, excellent private healthcare, Strong diplomatic ties without military entanglements. No strategic military bases else not a target. And here's the real beauty. You're still in the Americas, but far from the blast zones. Now, let's go even farther off the radar. New Zealand. An island nation so remote, even world maps sometimes forget it. Why is New Zealand one of the smartest long-term safe havens? Because it's geographically isolated, self-sufficient in food and energy, a top-tier healthcare system, politically chill and unaligned, home to one of the highest quality of life ratings on Earth. And here's the kicker. Even billionaires like Peter Thiel have already bought up land there. They know something. But again, cost is a factor. It's not cheap. But if you can afford it, it's like buying a ticket to Earth's backdoor exit. Still with me? Because now we're going to flip the script. What if you don't have 6 figures to burn? What if you want somewhere safe, stable, and affordable enough to actually retire on $200 a month? You're not alone. That's why next, we explore 4 countries where safety meets savings. Places where the cost of living is low, visas are friendly, and war? It's not even in the vocabulary. But before we go there, let me ask you something. Would you rather make this decision now with time to plan, or later, under pressure, when the world is burning? Because those who wait until the borders close, they don't get to choose where they run. They just run. Let's talk about Uruguay. Quiet, stable, overlooked. But here's the thing. Uruguay is South America's most politically neutral country. They've stayed out of regional conflicts. They have low corruption, strong institutions, and most importantly, they're not strategically valuable to any superpower. That makes them invisible in all the right ways. And if you're retiring on a budget, Uruguay checks boxes. Affordable rent outside major cities. Universal healthcare. One of the most progressive constitutions in Latin America. Retirement visas are accessible and clear. Want beaches? Check. Want farmland? Check. Want peace? Big check. Let's talk Portugal. Portugal has a long-standing reputation for staying out of fights. They were officially neutral in Wabiwu. They don't host major military operations. And their foreign policy is deeply rooted in diplomacy, not provocation. Plus, Portugal is one of the easiest European countries to retire in, thanks to their D7 visa. You don't need to be a millionaire. Just show stable passive income. The cost of living? Still reasonable compared to Western Europe, especially in inland towns and the Azores. And here's the bonus. You're in the EU, but far enough west to be out of the crossfire. Next up, Malaysia. Why? Because Malaysia sits in a region that's focused on trade, not war. It maintains diplomatic neutrality, doesn't antagonize major powers, and is rarely, if ever, mentioned in conflict projections. Now combine that with the MM2H, Malaysia My Second Home Retirement Program. Ultra-low cost of living. Top-tier infrastructure. English-friendly cities like Penang and Kuala Lumpur. It's no wonder it's become a silent magnet for digital nomads and early retirees who want peace, value, and distance from Western entanglements. Let's talk Georgia, the country, not the US state. Georgia is geopolitically flexible, remarkably open to foreigners, and allows visa-free stays up to 1 year for many Westerners. Add to that, a cost of living under $1,000 a month mountain and seaside towns to choose from. A thriving, resilient culture that survived centuries of conflict without provoking any. Now ask yourself, do you want to be visible or invisible when the world's powers collide? Because the people who stay safe won't be the ones with the most money. They'll be the ones who chose places no one else is looking at. And here's one final wildcard, Namibia. Yes, Namibia. Southern Africa. One of the most sparsely populated, stable, and resource-rich countries on the continent. Here's why it matters. No enemies. No military entanglements. Vast land, clean water, and agriculture-friendly zones. One of the lowest population densities in the world. Namibia is politically aligned with no one. It's neutral, independent, and not involved in any major alliances. That makes it one of the least likely countries to be affected by a global military conflict. And while the infrastructure is still developing, many expats are quietly setting up homesteads, eco-lodges, and retirement retreats, off-grid, off-radar, and off the global chessboard entirely. So what now? Subscribe to Wealth Without Borders, where we don't chase fear, we build freedom. Because when the world burns, it's the calm, prepared few who quietly walk away, before the fire even starts.